It is time once again for another edition of CONCACAF Player Power Rankings. This is technically the second edition. You can see part 1 if you want to out on the channel. This version is going to be a little different because I actually expanded it from top 25 to top 30. And there will still be many of you who are furious that I did not include your favorite player in the top 30 rankings. Look, if he ain't in the top 30, he's not that good. I'm sorry. We're going to go through this as quick as we can because 30 players is a lot to get to. I actually recommend you watch part 1 because it might give you a better foundation for what the original list looked like, because that's largely what I'm going off of. I'm not rebuilding the list every single time. I mean, these players are moving up if they did well, or they're moving down if they did poorly. Now, on anything as controversial as power rankings, you guys let me know my best and worst picks down below in the comments, which I'm sure you will. And if you like videos about CONCACAF, make sure you subscribe. Smash the like button, because a lot of work does go into putting these together. Some of you won't believe that, but it is true. And this will not be the last edition either, so maybe your favorite player is a little lower this time. He'll be higher on the next one, unless he's trash, in which case he probably went down. I told you this was top 30, but I even have a couple names that didn't quite get in there this time. Paxton Aronson chefed it up last year for Utrecht. Just need to see a little bit more now that he's back at Frankfurt. If he does well, he'll be in the top 30. Serginho Dest, coming off an injury. That's the only reason he's not in here. Kervin Arriaga, probably the second best player for Honduras right now. If he does well at Levante, he's in the top 30. And at number 30, I have Garano Kirk from Royal Antwerp and Suriname. I thought he was a beast at the Gold Cup. He's very good in Belgium, one of the better forwards in the league. Doesn't really have any clout at all, and Suriname got grouped, so it was kind of a very brief moment in the sun. But the streets will not forget Garano Kirk at the last Gold Cup. 29, I have Stefan Eustachio. Didn't play at the Gold Cup, even though he was supposed to, but then he also barely played at the Club World Cup for Porto. Bit of a weird situation there. He does play periodically for Porto, then sometimes it seems like he drops out of the lineup. Seems like he's always got like a little nagging injury. Canadians will be so freaking mad that I have him at 29 because some of them think he's like the best midfielder in CONCACAF, which is ridiculous. He's a good player, and I think his fundamentals are solid, but I don't think he's this game-changing player. Now, in an effort to pacify everyone, I have made it a priority of mine to watch more Eustachio, especially in the Portuguese league this season, because y'all keep telling me that he's a beast. I think he's good. I got him at 29. That's not exactly bad. At 28, I have Leon Bailey from Aston Villa. He was 21st in my last edition of the ranking, so he's gone down quite a bit. Wasn't very good at all at the Gold Cup. Played like 60 minutes of Prem football in the last month of the season, maybe even 2 months last year. This guy's supposed to be in his prime. He's 28 years old, and he's just frauding it up everywhere that he looks. He needs to leave Aston Villa like yesterday. He's not good enough for the Prem. He's not good enough for Aston Villa. He needs to go back to the Bundesliga right now, or go to Spain, go somewhere that's more his level. I'm not going to keep you in the top 20 just because you're on the Aston Villa payroll. That's not how this works. If y'all think I'm about to be like goal.com where I just rank people based on the club that they play for, you're on the wrong YouTube channel. This guy has gotten significantly worse last season. I don't care that he had one good year in the Prem. That does not make you a top 20 player in CONCACAF. On top of Jamaica having the most embarrassing Gold Cup in 2 decades. So until this man stops flopping, he's going to keep going down in the rankings. I got him at 28th. I'm not going to hear anything about that. -7 points. I think that's the highest drop of any player on my list. At 27, I have Junior Firpo from the Dominican Republic, and now Real Betis. He was very, very good for Leeds in the championship last season. Now he's at Betis. He's at a better league. If he cooks for Betis, which I think he will be the starter at some point. I think Ricardo Rodriguez will likely be the starter day 1, but I think Firpo will at some point break in there. Then he's probably going to go up. The reason I don't have him any higher, really, I think 27th is totally fine for Junior Firpo. He hasn't played a ton of games for the Dominican Republic, and he has like 0 games against anybody of note. Playing in the B tier of the CONCACAF Nations League, I'm sorry, dude. I don't care that you're getting assists against Bermuda. Can you do something a bit more for me? If I'm going to put you top 25, I think 27 is fine. At 26, I have Falarn Balogun, who I think I had at 25 last time. I might have had him at 26, actually. He just hasn't played, y'all. He hasn't played for the U.S. since September. He is finally, looks like he's back in form. He played in the friendly for Monaco yesterday, and I think he got a goal, so he'll probably go up in the list, but he was injured, so I got him at 26. Relax. At 25, I had Ricardo Pepi, who I had at 23rd last time. Why did he move down? Because the brother hasn't played. That's literally it. He's also back healthy, apparently. He came on as a substitute in the cup for PSV. He could definitely break top 20 this season, but you got to play. If you're injured, you're not going to move up in the list. At 24, I have Tim Weah. I had him at 20th previously. Did not play at the Gold Cup. Barely played at the Club World Cup. He got 45 minutes against Al Ain. That was it. Did not register a goal or assist since the last edition of these rankings came out. So I guess back to to form for Tim Weah. He actually doesn't have a goal involvement since Valentine's Day. That's terrible. But again, that's kind of the regular Tim Weah. I think last season for Juventus, I think he had 6 goals, maybe 4 assists. Definitely an anomaly. That's definitely a one-off season based on everything we've seen from this man's entire career. Some fans will not want to admit that. He has never been a guy pushing double-digit assists or double-digit goals. Never. Now he's at Marseille. I don't know how many minutes he's going to get, either at the right wing position or at the right back position. I'm very curious what happens there. I think it's a lateral move. I dropped a transfer video. You can see that. I think he does deserve to fall a little bit here. At 23rd, I have Marcel Ruiz from Toluca, who was previously unranked. Now, he was unranked previously because if you've never played for your national team, you're probably not going to make the top 25. There's only one exception to that rule in this entire list, and you guys may or may not know who I'm talking about. You will see him later. But at the Gold Cup, Marcel Ruiz was a beast. I think he solidified his starting spot in the Mexican midfield. It finally looks like the new generation of Mexican midfielders is here now. He had an assist in the final, and I think that's something that needs to be factored in as well. For Toluca last season, he was a beast. Was he the best midfielder in Liga MX? I don't watch enough to say that. I would be a fault mob merchant if I said, yeah, Marcel Ruiz, best midfielder. But I think to say top 5 midfielder in the league is a fair assessment. And since the last edition of the rankings, because again, I'm going a lot off of what happened since April, he's been in the best form of his entire life. And so I think 23 is an appropriate spot for a guy who was very good for Mexico in his debut, essentially, at a competitive tournament. And for Toluca, they beat America in the championship. He's been immense for that team's success. He's doing it in the Leagues Cup. He's doing it in Liga MX. What more do we want from him? In 22nd, I have his teammate, Alexis Vega, who I had in 24th last time. I think at the Gold Cup, he was pretty solid. I think he finishes with maybe 2 goal involvements in the entire tournament. His most notable contribution was the game winner against Saudi Arabia. But for Toluca, and I don't even know how this is possible, but since the last edition of the rankings, who I think he was clearly the best player in Liga MX last season, in his last 8 games in Liga MX, and this is mainly playoff games, he has 3 goals and 6 assists. He has 9 GA in his last 8 Liga MX games. I think 3 of those are against America, 2 of those are against Tigres. I think the worst game in there was against Necaxa. So he's going up against the Gigantes of Liga MX, and he is still absolutely embarrassing them. He scored and had an assist in the final to beat America. Alexis Vega must move up in the power rankings. I had him 24, now I got him 22nd. Again, did his thing at the Gold Cup, contributed, which I think he needed to do. He was an important player, not the best, but an important player. He wasn't a scrub. I got Alexis Vega 22nd, baby. 21st, I have Josh Sargent from Norwich City. I had him at 17 last time. That was probably a bit high. Probably should have been 20th in my last edition. There's a couple corrections in here. 2 goals in 7 games since the last edition of the rankings. He did reject a move to the Bundesliga. That was for familial reasons. Some people will be mad about that. I don't care. I think the championship is still a pretty good level, especially for a guy who's, 4th on the U.S. striker depth chart right now, just by virtue of moving to the Bundesliga. Didn't guarantee he was going to go to 3rd. The reason he's there in the depth chart is because he hasn't scored since 2003. But I still think for his level in the championship still being very important for Norwich, I'm always going to have him around 20 to 25, I feel like. But as soon as his club form falls off, he'll be out because there is no production at the national team level. But again, I'm not going to hold that rejected move against him, but he's got a hard cap on where he can be on this list. At 20, I have Weston McKennie. I had him 22nd last time. You guys were pretty upset at me for that. I just think Weston McKennie is very inconsistent in his games, even at the Club World Cup. Didn't make any sense. He doesn't play in the knockout game against Real Madrid. I searched for an injury. I could not find one. He was the club captain in at least one of the group stage games. He's got a very good game for Juventus in Serie A. Then he kind of slow and lethargic the next game. I don't know. I feel like 20th is fine. Didn't play at the Gold Cup either. His last couple appearances for the national team have not been good. 20th is fine. Look, if he cooks this season, if he does something in the upcoming friendlies against Japan, South Korea, Colombia, and Ecuador, I think is who the U.S. is going to play, he'll move up. 20th is fine. At 19th, Manfred Ugalde from Costa Rica. I had him at 16th last time, so he slid down 3 places here. He has cooled off more than goddamn Iceman from X-Men. He went from the best striker arguably in Russia to actually losing a starting spot to start this season. Now, the reason I dropped him 3 points and not dropping him like 6 or 7 is because for Costa Rica, the Gold Cup, he was still good. People will say he was a pen merchant. Well, he also got the game-winning assist against Suriname in the group stage, so the haters won't want to talk about that, and obviously it was a huge miss against the U.S. in the quarterfinal. He had 6 goal involvements in 5 games for Los Ticos across all competitions. That's including World Cup qualifiers this summer. So he's doing better than he ever has for Los Ticos. Typically, he's kind of quiet actually for the national team, but he's fallen off a cliff for his club. So when I put in my, my special power rankings calculator, that it is proprietary, you guys cannot know how that functions. Honestly, you're not strong enough to see what the secret formula is. Anyways, I deducted him 3 spots here. I think that's fair. But if Ugalde does not start scoring again in Russia, he's going to be out of the top 25. It'll be him and Garano Kirk battling for that 30th spot. Right above him at 18th, I have Michael Murillo from Marseille and Panama. Now, I'll be honest, y'all. I had him unranked last time. That was a massive howler. And I just want to apologize to my loyal Panamanian audience for not having him in the top 25. I didn't have him in there because he was injured at the time. But then I was thinking about it more, and I was like, that's the dumbest reasoning. He's clearly, even with the injury, still a top 25 player. And it's not like he missed 30 games last season. I think he just missed the Nations League, and I dropped him for that. So that was stupid. I have him at 18th. I think that's where he belongs. 3 assists in 4 games for Panama this summer. I think he was the best player at the Gold Cup had Panama made it to the final or even won it. He would have been their MVP. He actually led the Gold Cup in big chances created despite playing 3 games out of a possible, 7, which is insane. That just shows how much he was cooking in the group stage. I thought he ended the season with Marseille well last year. They won 4 of their final 5 games. Again, my bad. He should have been in here last time. This is me accepting my responsibility as a YouTuber. I need to be better. Amir Murillo is 100% a top 25 player. Is he the best right back in CONCACAF? Well, he's battling Serginho Dest. He's battling Alistair Johnston for that. Kind of depends how you want to look at it. Sorry, again, to Panamanians. Amir Murillo, 18th in the CONCACAF power rankings. And right above him at 17th, I have Coco Carrasquilla, his teammate and national team captain. I had Coco Carrasquilla as 19th last time, so I moved him up 2 spots. I kind of moved him up 2 spots, not because Coco Carrasquilla has been amazing, although for Pumas, in the last month and a half, is his best stretch of form since joining Liga MX. Obviously, he missed the Gold Cup. It was kind of guys like Manfred Ugalde falling off, or guys like Josh Sargent cooling off, or guys like Tim Weah cooling off. Like, there's just more players that were around his spot that have decreased and dropped their level more than Carrasquilla. I think he did enough to, maintain, maybe even go up one, because he has been a menace in the Leagues Cup for Pumas. I think Pumas fans are really starting to come around to him now, but he didn't play in the Gold Cup, and that really hurt Panama. I mean, obviously, they got upset by Honduras. Did you see the midfield in the quarterfinals games? I think they could have used Coco Carrasquilla. I mean, anybody thinking Christian Martinez is as good as Coco, I hope I never have to see that discourse ever again. 16th, I have Ethan Pinnock from Jamaica and Brentford. He was 14th last time. I'll be honest, if there's another player who I think is at serious risk of tumbling down in these rankings, it's Ethan Pinnock. I really feel like his best days are behind him, and I think he needs to leave Brentford. He didn't even start or play in Brentford's last 8 games of the season. So basically, since the last edition of the rankings in early April, he didn't play. He wasn't injured. He was just on the bench, not used as a substitute. He was just chilling. Very mid at the Gold Cup. Again, historic failure for Jamaica. I'm going to wait until November this season to really assess how dire the situation is. But now that Thomas Frank is gone, I feel like Ethan Pinnock's days are numbered. Maybe I'm wrong and maybe he'll move up again, but yeah, you're not staying at 14th if you're not playing, bro. At 15th, I have Edson Alvarez from West Ham. Beast at the Gold Cup. Defensively was a monster, but also had 2 goals, including 1 in the final. Man of the match in the Gold Cup final. Still a bit of an unclear situation at his club. I don't know what's going to happen at West Ham. And I'm not going to be one of those Mexico fans who pretends like Edson is not part of the problem at West Ham. He's absolutely part of the problem. Is he the problem? No, and I've never said that. You're saying it's Edson's I'm not saying it's Edson's fault, but he's part of the starting 11 and gets cooked 5-0 at home. He's a defensive midfielder. He needs to do a little bit more defending. So I moved him up because the Gold Cup performance was so good. That was like prime Edson. West Ham, again, big question mark. It's kind of a Coco situation for me where I got Ethan Pinnock dropping below. I got other players dropping below, and so I'm going to move Edson up. I think 15th is fine. I will give him somewhat of a slight pass for his questionable club form because of how good he is for the national team. There's been very, very few midfielders better at the national team level in the last 12 months than Edson inside CONCACAF. At 14th, I have Moise Bombito. I had him at 12th last time. Just barely played. That's it, y'all. We don't have to get upset. Again, Canadians, that I dropped him 2 spots. He hasn't played. Didn't play in the Gold Cup. Still has huge potential. Once he starts playing, you know what? He'll go up again, but my guy barely got any minutes since the last ranking. 13th, I have Johnny Cardoso, who I had him in 11th last time, I think. He was actually pretty poor, I thought, for Real Betis near the business end of the season. Europa League final wasn't very good. Another horrible appearance for the U.S. men's national team. That's really the thing for Johnny. You want to be top 10, you have to do a Malik Tillman. You have to start performing for the Stars and Stripes. If you don't, then by my criteria, where I weigh in national team pretty significantly, what am I supposed to do? do? Am I supposed to just ignore it because you were so good for Real Betis? I think he was good for Real Betis in the big games that most people watched. I don't think he was great in the Europa League final. I don't know how it's going to look now at Atleti. I don't know if he's going to start. Is he going to start with Barrios? I've talked about this in other videos. There's a lot of unknown with Cardoso. I think a lot of people simping for him don't watch La Liga because I don't think La Liga has huge viewership, much less Real Betis. I think everybody checks FotMob and checks how many interceptions he had and is like, he's world class. Just calm down. This season's going to be make or break, I think, for Johnny Cardoso in terms of that like elite midfielder ranking. Not for his career, just in terms of how we see him as a potentially elite midfielder. As an Atleti fan, I'm very skeptical, but you know what? If he does well in a tougher environment where he's going to have to be participating in a team that breaks down low blocks, I'll move Johnny Cardoso up. And you know what would help his ranking even more? Not being the worst player on the pitch for the U.S. men's national team. He's basically the opposite of Edson. Edson, for club level, highly questionable. Yeah, he's got some good performances every once in a while, but it's not good enough. Cardoso was very strong for Real Betis, but for the national team, he's embarrassingly bad. So I think keeping him at 13th is fair. At 12th, I have Chris Richards, who I had him at 13th last time, so he moved up one spot. I mean, look, bro, he won the FA Cup with Crystal Palace. He won the Community Shield yesterday with Crystal Palace. Basically the MVP of the United States Gold Cup campaign, scored in the final, scored against Saudi Arabia in the group stage. Yeah, I think he's been a pretty freaking good CB as of late since the last edition of the rankings. I mean, who else is going to move above him? Bombito? He hasn't played. I think Richards deserves to be moving up. There's an argument for him to even be 10th now. I just want to see a little bit more this season with Crystal Palace. He kind of has a little bit of the Weston McKennie where he's very good for 2 games and then like horrendous for 1 game in the Prem. If he can get a bit more consistency, he probably will be cracking the top 10. At 11, I have Santi Jimenez. I had him at 8th last time, so I dropped him 3 spots. There you go. Everyone is like, oh, he just moves the Mexican players up. There we go. Santi's lucky to be 11th. If stuff doesn't get better for AC Milan, bro, he might be 15th, 16th, 19th, next edition of the rankings. It's not good for Santi right now. If I'm putting him in that Ethan Pinnock kind of like panic zone right now, Leon Bailey, who was another guy I said could drop a lot, maybe Tim Weah, Santi's got to get going. He did have a couple goals in Serie A at the end of last season, but he's not a starter for Mexico, and he's not a starter for AC Milan. So he went from Feyenoord breaking goal scoring records, 6 goals in the Champions League, the Hoya of Mexican football. Well, now I think the Hoya is Gilberto Mora. I would say he's replaced him. I mean, Santi's also like 23, so it's a bit different now. And also, he got benched for Luka effing Jovic, who just signed for Ajax Athens. So it's not good right now for Santi Jimenez. That's why I dropped him 3 spots. I need to see what happens to start the Serie A season. If he is still not a starter and he has no impact off the bench, he'll drop even further. At 10th, I have Malik Tillman. I had him at 15th last time, and people told me that was high. Well, what do you guys think now? I like to think I'm fair about this. I'm waiting to see certain things with certain players. Him and Johnny Cardoso had the same assignment this summer. One guy continued to be a fraud. One guy was the second best player for the United States at the Gold Cup. Malik Tillman did everything he could. Outside of Chris Richards, he was clearly the best player. Clearly the only player of like real quality in the attack or midfield for the United States this summer. I think that's enough to move him up, on top of being very important for PSV, especially since my last edition of the rankings. I believe PSV were still in second in the Eredivisie. At the last end of the season, they made a push to overtake Ajax. They did so with Malik Tillman being incredibly important at the end of the year. He had 5 goals in the last 6 games of the season. PSV won the league by 1 point. He had a goal and assist in the final match day to win them that game that basically won them the league. So if I'm going to give Edson points for scoring in the Gold Cup final, I got to give Malik Tillman points for scoring in the ultimate Eredivisie match that wins the league. Now he's moved to Leverkusen. That wasn't really factored into my rankings. But if he cooks at Leverkusen, which I've made my thoughts known, Eredivisie offensive stats can be very misleading. But if he does it at Leverkusen, oh, we have something here. At number 9, I have Tyler Adams. I had him at 11th last time, so I did move him up a little bit. Not the greatest showing at the Gold Cup. I don't think it helped that he had complete deadwood surrounding him outside of Malik Tillman. Diego Luna, bless his heart, he was running, but Diego Luna didn't make my top 30 list here. For Bournemouth, he's still very reliable, and so because he's so good at the club level in the Premier League, it's hard for me to have him much lower than this, and I don't think he was horrendous at the Gold Cup. He was just below his standard, but I think you'll see him perform better when he actually has Wes or Johnny Cardoso or Yunus Musa next to him. More of like the regular starting U.S. men's national team midfielders. I think you will see a better performance from Tyler Adams. When you're a solid Premier League starter, you're going to be top 15 in the list like all the time, unless you don't play for your national team, which he does. He's been the captain before. He's had many very good performances for the U.S. 9 might be a bit high, but again, these lists fluctuate, they grow and everything, so I think it's fine. Bournemouth did lose a couple very important players this summer. So what does that mean for Tyler Adams? If he keeps the form despite the talent drain from Bournemouth, he's probably going to stay at 9. I mean, maybe he could move up to 8th if he starts becoming like the best midfielder in CONCACAF, but I don't think he is that right now, though I am very comfortable having him above Edson Alvarez. At 8th, I have Alistair Johnston, who had him at 9th last time. He had 4 assists in the last 6 games in the Scottish season of last year to end the year. First game this season for Celtic, man of the match performance. So it's just Alistair Johnston just chefing more without anybody giving a single frick. Was he a key figure for Canada at the Gold Cup? No, but I thought he was good in the games that he played in. I thought he was good when Canada went down a man against Guatemala. I mean, Canada didn't get eliminated because of Alistair Johnston. He actually did, I would say, everything he could to take Canada through 2 penalties against Guatemala, but then it wasn't meant to be, and things happen on penalty kicks. I'm not going to dock all the Canadian players because they got knocked out on PKs with a red card. I don't think that's fair to do, especially when Johnston didn't get the red card. It was Jacob Schaffelberg, who, again, not in my top 30. I wouldn't even say close to the top 30. I don't think that's an offensive statement to make, but I guess I will see what you guys think. I don't actually think I really had Johnston move up. I just think Santi Jimenez was above him and moved down, so now Johnston has moved up to that 8th spot. In 7th, I have Mason Greenwood from Marseille. 5 goals in his last 6 games of the season in the French league. Still no Jamaica debut, and that's both helping and hurting him. Hear me out here, because international form is extremely important to me in these rankings. But Mason Greenwood is a top 4 attacker in France, top 5 attacker. I mean, I guess you could probably put the entire PSG attack in front of him. Whatever, fine. Outside of that, it's probably Cherki, who's gone, and it's Mason Greenwood and Jonathan David, who's also gone now to Juventus. So I think he's been so good in Ligue 1 and so important for the Zerbi that I do think he's been a top 8 player. And this is a guy who also has a resume of being good. Dude, he was good at freaking Getafe. You know how difficult that is? He was good at Manchester United. He's a talented player. He's not a good person, but he is a good player. Now, anyways, I'm getting on a tangent. For Jamaica, he has not debuted yet, though it's been reported for now the 5th time that he's got a Jamaican passport. Whatever. He was supposed to play the Nations League. Then he was supposed to play the Gold Cup. Now he's supposed to play World Cup qualifiers. I'll believe it when I see it. If he can be the first player to not fall off a cliff and have their powers sucked out of them by a giant Jamaican leech, then he probably going to be pushing top 5. Like, if he goes into Jamaica and he makes them comfortably win their qualifying group, as much as I don't want to, he probably will be top 5 on the list. Now, why I said it's also a good thing is because the likelihood of that happening is like 10%, because this is Jamaica we're talking about here, and they're cursed. So what's probably going to happen is the same thing that happened to Damari Gray and the same thing that happened to Leon Bailey. As soon as he does physically hold that Jamaican passport in his hands, he will lose 90% of his footballing ability, and he will become a scrub, and he'll probably be out of top 5 football within 3 years. That's probably what's going to happen. So I guess we're going to see. All eyes from me are on what happens in European football and what happens for Jamaica if and when he actually ever debuts. At 6th, I have Johan Vasquez. I had him at 6th last time, so no movement here. Such a beast in the Gold Cup. Basically a menace for Mexico 90% of the time. It's extremely rare to see a bad Johan Vasquez game for Mexico. I think at the international level, if we're talking about center backs and we're talking about consistent performances, I think he is the most consistent. I think he's more consistent than Bombito. I think he's more consistent than Chris Richards. And it looks like he's staying at Genoa for another year. There were rumors he was going to leave to Juventus, but he's been made the club captain. He's been a solid CB in Serie A for a couple seasons now. That's going to be pretty good for the CONCACAF player power rankings, especially when you're so good for Mexico. So I think 6 is fair. It's going to be really hard for Johan to get any higher. Pretty much he's handicapped by being at Genoa. He would have to go to like a Napoli. Yeah, but I think 6 is fair for Johan. At 5, I have Alphonso Davies. I had him at 4th previously. Y'all, he didn't play. He didn't play. That's it. Calm down. He did not play. I know Canadians are furious. This is not a charity, though. I need you to get minutes. When he comes back, I have no doubt he'll be back in the top 3. But for now, he's not playing, so I dropped him. Anthony Robinson, I have him at 4. I had him at 3rd last time. His offensive output, very similar to Tim Weah. It seems like last season was a bit of an anomaly, although even the season before, I think Jedi had 6 assists. I think he had 10 last year, 6 the season before that. He does not have an offensive assist or goal since February 1st. So basically the same time Tim Weah stopped getting goal involvements, Jedi did the same thing. I still think Jedi defensively is far better than Weah. He's still one of the best defenders in the Prem, but his defensive numbers took a dip since April as well. So if he's still the most locked down one-on-one defender in the Prem, I probably could have kept him at 3rd, but even that has dipped a little bit. And yeah, I'm curious what happens. It could have been the Liverpool transfer links. Maybe that was weighing on him. Maybe he was exhausted because he doesn't really get injured that often, so he's just always playing. But yeah, I would still have him above Alphonso Davies because he is playing. But if he doesn't get back to those offensive assists, goals, creating chances, Alphonso Davies Davies will overtake him when Alphonso Davies returns, assuming that he is still his former self. At third, I have Raul Jimenez, who I had him at 5 last time. This is pretty high for Raul Jimenez. Game-winning goal in the Gold Cup final. Basically resurrected the Mexican national team, though. Like, if we're talking intangibles, Mexico, we were like a lost puppy before Raul came back, and he's been unplayable for the Mexican national team. Ended last season in the Prem with 2 goals in his final 5 games. I think his importance for how Mexico have come back cannot be overstated, and I think for Fulham, he's still an important player. He's still a Premier League striker, and he's still doing well. So, therefore, I have him at third. At second, I have Christian Pulisic. He was second in my rankings last time as well. He ended the season with a very solid and respectable 5 goals and assists in the last 10 games for Milan. No Gold Cup participation. Did it hurt him? Not really. I mean, I was pissed off, but I didn't deduct him points for not competing in the Gold Cup. I just kept him exactly where he was. I think it's going to be fun to watch Pulisic this season because Reinders is gone. There's still a bit of a malaise around Milan. If he can keep the same production this season as last, and Jonathan David's going to be in a new environment, I think the top 5 is going to look extremely different when the next ranking comes out, which will probably be November. I don't know. Maybe there's a Croatian connection with Modric and Pulisic actually gets even better. Maybe he's like a top 5 MVP in Serie A. I'm excited. I'm going to be watching a lot of Serie A this season, so we'll see what happens. At number 1, I still have Jonathan David. Keeps doing his thing. 4 goals, 1 assist in his last 6 games for the Canadian national team this summer. Played his heart out at the Gold Cup, did everything he could, literally ran himself into the ground. It wasn't enough. Now he's at Juventus, and this is a huge moment. This is a watershed moment for Jonathan David because half the people in CONCACAF are like me, and we're like, no, he's comfortably been the best striker for 3 years. And then you have the other half of the aisle that are like, he's actually worse than Josh Sargent and borderline like Haji Wright level. Did I just insult Haji Wright there? Anyways, you get what I'm saying. People think he's not that good. People think that the numbers in Liga are French tax. Now that he's in a grown man league in Italy, he's going to get exposed. I don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what's going to happen. That hasn't happened yet. I'm not factoring in predicted future output into my current power rankings. That would make no sense. And this is also not Inception. This is not Marvel. I'm not Doctor Strange. There's not portals opening up to make this content for you guys. I'm just looking forward to him either silencing the doubters or proving the haters right. There's the meme that's like the haters said I couldn't do it. Turns out they were right. Maybe that's what we're going to see with Jonathan David. I'm backing him. I think he's the best striker in CONCACAF. You cannot dismiss what he did at the club level for Lille for so long, on top of having good numbers in Europe last season as well. So he's still my number 1. But yeah, top 5 come November. So many of these guys are in interesting scenarios. Davies might be coming back in probably, December, I would say. So he's probably not going to move up. Jedi Robinson, does he improve his form for Fulham? What about Raul Jimenez? Is he going to start getting more minutes? Is he like slowly phased out of the 11? I don't know. Christian Pulisic, what does it look like without Reinders, with a different team around him in AC Milan? I don't know. I'm so excited to see what happens. There's a lot of Serie A here, man. Damn. Serie A definitely has the best CONCACAF representation, which is why I'm going to be watching the league more this year. Anyways, guys, that is my top 30 CONCACAF player power rankings completed August 2025 edition. You guys let me know what you think of the list down below in the comments. Which ranking do you despise? Which ranking do you love? Is there a player that was underrated? Is there a player that was overrated? I appreciate you guys for watching. Again, if you like CONCACAF content, make sure you're subscribed. Smash the like button if you did enjoy, and I will see you guys in the next one.